Good afternoon, everyone. And first, I would like to thank the International CML Foundation for this award, and I'm really honored receiving that. And thank you for Professor Hockhaus for a very nice and thorough introduction for our research. So, as mentioned already there in those words, so our research has mostly been related to immune effects, but actually how we started was also related to understanding these different genomic abnormalities. So Professor Janet Rowley did an amazing job in understanding different genomic translocations. So here you can see the paper in Nature, published as a monograph, where she really described how this from chromosome 22, the part has been translocated to chromosome 9, and that has led really to significant changes in the life of CML patients after discoveries of these tyrosine kinase inhibitors. I was also very happy not actually to meet her in person, but listening her talks at the ASH meetings, where she also has received many awards. So I'm really honored receiving this prize. So topics today will be related to this lymphocytosis, as already described by Dr. Hockhaus, understanding the natural killer cell responses not only in CML but also in other blood cancers, and also how we could probably pharmacologically boost the NK cell responses. So what are needed in CML today? We have seen that there are excellent responses in patients, but still there are some patients that transform to the blast crisis, and in those cases the treatment responses are not yet optimal. Of course, we also need to have a suitable side effect profile so that the patients can live without severe side effects. And hopefully many of these patients can also be cured or at least be in treatment-free remission. So what about the immune system? Does the immune system play a role in any of these parts? So our group has been interested in understanding the immune system in CML, and this is one of those our earlier studies where we have analyzed with immune histochemistry the differences in the bone marrow of CML patients and compared that also to the acute myeloid leukemia and acute lymphocytic leukemia patients. We can see that they cluster separately here, and already here in this picture we can see the bone marrow environment in CML patients based on the immune cells, not on the leukemia cells, differs from the other leukemia types. Also, when we looked which cells are there enhanced or increased, we can see that there are more cells with more of these immunosuppressive phenotypes at the beginning. So as known, these tyrosine kinase inhibitors should mostly target BCR-ABL. However, what we know already that there are also many other kinases which they can inhibit. I was doing my residency in hematology lab in mid-2000, and when then looking in the microscope, there were also many CML patients whom then in the clinics aspirates were taken, and they were treated mostly that time with imatinib. That's what we noticed there was that in many cases there were increased amount of lymphocytes in the bone marrow samples. So this is an example of imatinib-treated patients pre-treatment and from different time points, and the dashed line is the upper normal limit of the lymphocytes in the bone marrow, and we noticed that they increased there, and the increase was also related to the optimal treatment responses. So later we focused especially in dasatinib-associated lymphocytosis, and this stemmed from the clinical trials that were run by Dr. Kimmo Porkka. And then when treating the patients, he noticed that in some cases there were increased amount of lymphocytes. So that intrigued us, and we were interested to understand, so what happens actually when patients are receiving this dasatinib. So in some cases, there were really high amount of lymphocytes in the circulation, and then when we followed them in prospective way, we could see that especially these kind of granzyme positive T cells, cytotoxic CD8 T cells were increased. But also later we understood that there was also very rapid mobilization of those lymphocytes in the circulations. So already at the 1 hour when patients took the tablet, we could see a huge increase of lymphocytes in the circulations. So mostly those lymphocytes had this morphology of LGL cells, large granular lymphocytes, and they consisted mostly of T cells and CD8 cells. So we have also tried to understand why there are these more mature cells, these LGL cells in blood samples from these patients. And that we also analyzed here in this Nordic CML trial, where also interferon was combined with dasatinib. And what we noticed that when patients used first 3 months of dasatinib, then both the NK cell phenotype and also the CD8 cell phenotype that matured, so the patient had more mature cells. But then when interferon was added there, we could see that they partly reverted back to more naive cell phenotype. So it seems that dasatinib was driving the maturation of those cells. But then when analyzed more in vitro, and for that we used this kind of reporter cell line system. So here we had the T cell TrueCut cell line, which is having NFAT reporter, which is measuring the T cell receptor activity. But we could observe that in the control cases, when cells are stimulated with CD3 and CD28, we can see NFAT activity here. But then with the increased concentrations of dasatinib, we can see that there is a loss of this NFAT activity. So that was already known that time that dasatinib is inhibiting the T cell receptor signaling. But how that relates then to this increased amount of these LGL cells there in the circulation? It was quite interesting to observe that actually what normally happens when there is a strong T cell receptor activation, so that is driving this kind of antigen-induced cell death. And in those cases, without dasatinib, there was this kind of decreased number of alive, those reporter cells, suggesting that they had entered to the apoptosis after this T cell receptor signaling. But then when we added dasatinib there, we could see that there were no differences in the cell number. So suggesting that maybe at least that's partly the mechanisms how dasatinib is actually abolishing this kind of antigen-induced cell death, and therefore there is an accumulation of these mature T cells in the circulation. But so this is the LGL cell. So you can see that it's a large granular cell, which here in the cytoplasm there are those granules which consist granzyme and perforins. And then when we found out that there was this increase in this dasatinib, we were also interested to see that there were quite a lot of similarities with the actual LGL leukemia. So in LGL leukemia, there is also increased amount of CD8 cells or NK cells, and they are clonal cells. And patients have side effects or like associated symptoms such as neutropenia. What we also observed in some cases when patients were treated with dasatinib. So then we went into the study of these LGL leukemia patients, and there we discovered these STAT3 and STAT5 activating mutations in the SH2 domain of the genes, and showed that they were increasing the activation of the signaling. When we went back to the dasatinib-treated patients, we were not able to see similar kind of mutations, so this was now more related to this actual disease. After that, we have also tried to understand in more detail, so what are these clonal T cells and what is the role of somatic mutations in T cells and also in NK cells. As known, more so these somatic mutations is not only nowadays related to the cancer, but we can find them in every cell in our body. Of course, they can be related to this clonal hematopoiesis, but also they can occur at the later stages in mature T cells, such as in this case of LGL leukemia. So now back to the NK cells. So what are these NK cells? They are cytotoxic lymphocytes. They are different from T cells that they don't need similar kind of like antigen presentations, what is needed for T cells. They usually can recognize, for example, virus-infected cells or cancer cells. And what is there on the NK cell surface? They have these kind of activating receptors and inhibitory receptors. And why NK cells are not killing the normal cells in our body is that the ligand for this inhibitory receptor is MHC class I molecules. So in that way, they are inhibiting the NK cell function, and NK cells mostly recognize when this MHC class I is downregulated. So NK cells can kill in many different ways. They have, for example, they can release these different cytotoxic enzymes such as granzymes and porphyrins. They also kill due to this death receptor-mediated signaling, and also they secrete, for example, interferon gamma. So what is known about the NK cells in CML, especially in these treatment-free remission studies shown by many groups, is that these NK cell numbers are associated with a better probability to stop the TKI treatment. Shown here, patients who have higher numbers or better function of NK cells, they tend to stay in remission better compared to the patients with the lower number of NK cells. Also, when NK cells have been studied at the time of diagnosis, for example, shown here in this publication from Dr. Tian Ong's group, they analyzed the patients who had optimal response later to TKI treatment, or patients who went into the blast crisis. And what was noticed there was that the patients who had this optimal response, they had this kind of hyperfunctional adaptive-like NK cells. Whereas then the patients who went into the blast crisis, they had different type of NK cells. This inhibitory receptor, NKG2A, was more highly expressed on their NK cells, and also the inhibitory ligand was expressed on the CD34 positive hematopoietic stem cells. During the tyrosine kinase treatment, it has been observed both with imatinib is that the function of NK cells is improving. For example, the degranulation responses shown here are improving, and here shown in the other publication from Australia is that when we are comparing the patients receiving either optimal response to the healthy controls, we can see that the numbers of NK cells are increasing during the treatment, and also their function is improving. So when analyzed the patients who are aiming to stop the tyrosine kinase inhibitor therapy, this was from the small cohort of the patients in the EuroSki trials. What we noticed that overall in CML, not only in the TKI stop setting, but also at the diagnosis, when we compare that for the other leukemias or for the other solid tumors, we noticed that NK cells are increased in CML patients. And the phenotype of NK cells also seemed to be different from the healthy, shown here that they had also at the TKI stopping stage this kind of more activated phenotype. So now we know that, yes, NK cells seem to be playing a role there in CML, but what is actually, can we somehow utilize this understanding, not only in CML, but also in the other blood cancers? So currently there are already many clinical trials evaluating the efficacy of expanded NK cells, as allogenic NK cells, such as like a cellular treatment for acute leukemias such as AML, or use of NK cells as CAR NK cell therapies. But it's really not known a lot whether how much is depending on individual blood cancer cell types or individual patients, how they would respond to the NK cells. And therefore, we have been interested to understand in more detail the mechanisms how these different blood cancer cells are either resistant or sensitive to NK cells. So together with Konstantin Mitsiades' group from the Dana-Farber, we have performed quite extensive study where we have combined multiplex single-cell RNA sequencing, analyzing the interaction of NK cells with the cancer cells. We have done genome-wide CRISPR screens and also the molecular profiling, comparing that with the clinical data. And actually all the data is available here online for searching and understanding in more detail. So here is just some results of those. First, when we are doing the whole genome-wide CRISPR screening, so the gene knockouts are done here on the target cells and not on the NK cell side. We utilized different blood cancer cell lines. CML was represented with K562, but also we had AML cell lines, multiple myeloma, BALL, and B-cell lymphoma. After the introduction of these CRISPR libraries to these target cells, we cultured those with the primary expanded NK cells for 2 weeks, and in the end we sequenced those remaining cells, meaning like that if some gene is important for the NK cell resistance, we could see either like expansion of that pool of those cells or then the deletion of those cells from the end pool. And here is just some glimpse of those results. So here in these columns we can see different cell lines. K562 CML is highlighted here with the arrow. And here are like the different mechanisms what were found to be like the top hits in these genome-wide screens. So of course already it was known that, for example, the antigen presentation-related genes are important for the NK cell sensitivity. So when we are deleting these genes, they are increasing sensitivity for or NK cell killing. But as you can see that there are also differences in the different cell lines. So some genes are only popping up in some of these cell lines, whereas in others we don't see the similar kind of mechanisms. What we also found to be important is these genes related to this death receptor signaling, and so deletion of these genes is inducing resistance to the NK cell mediated killing. But then when we looked at other genes, for example, one of those was this activating receptor ligand, and it was quite surprising to see that we could only observe that in these K562 CML cells and myeloid cells, but not in the other cell lines, suggesting that there is clearly a blood cancer specific mechanisms how they are either sensitive or resistant for NK cells. Also, we found some of the novel mechanisms. For example, in myeloma, there seem to be many genes related to fucosylation of the proteins, which then sensitize myeloma cells for the NK cell killing. We have analyzed these also in the primary patient samples and looked whether these hits which came from these CRISPR screens can also be found mutated in patients. And especially in large diffuse B-cell lymphoma, we can see that there is mutation in those patient samples, suggesting that they could then also impact whether those patients would be sensitive or resistant to the NK cells. So when we did also with a larger panel of cells, so altogether 63 different blood cancer cells, we noticed that in general AML cells are more sensitive for the NK cell killing, whereas these both B-cell malignancies, multiple myeloma and B-ALL, they are more resistant to the NK cell killing. It was also quite interesting to find out that some of these T-cell malignancies seem to be sensitive for NK cell mediated killing. Then when we try to understand also in this kind of functional co-culture, so what happens to the NK cells and target cells when they are in the co-culture. So here is a UMAP single-cell RNA sequencing analysis showing when NK cells are alone. But then when these same NK cells are seeing these target K562 cells, we can see that they are clearly changing their profile. So they are coming this kind of activated NK cells, and the gene signature can be seen here. However, when these exactly the same NK cells meet another target cell, and here this is one AML cell line, we can see that there is a different kind of activation pattern happening, and this is more related to this type 1 interference signature. So we were also able to look whether this kind of cell-cell contact is needed, and for this kind of activated signature, we could confirm that the cell-cell contact actually with the target and NK cells is needed, whereas this type 1 interference signature is more related to these soluble cytokines. Now, when we did the exact same analysis with these 26 different blood cancer cells, we could see that there is a lot of variation. So the NK cells here were same in all the conditions, but depending on the target cells, there is a lot of variation whether NK cells get activated or not at all. So you can see here those blood cancer cells here in this end, they were not able to induce any kind of activation in the NK cells. We also confirmed that with the multiple different NK cell donors and noticed that the functions or these changes are similar, suggesting that the responses to these allogenic NK cells are really dependent on the target cancer cells and not per se in the NK cells. Also here, what we notice is that in more general myeloid cells, myeloid leukemias, CML and AML, they are inducing stronger NK cell responses. Now we are also aiming to bring back this to the patients. So we have a cohort of the patients in our Nordic CML study group where we have took the bone marrow samples from CML patients at the time when they are stopping the TKI treatment. We are sorting or separating NK cells from the bone marrow samples from these patients, both at the baseline and also when patients are stopping, we are collecting samples either 6 months after the stop or in the case they relapse. We are co-culturing those sorted NK cells with the CML cells and then analyzing the transcriptomic responses. This is just some preliminary data showing what is happening, and here you can see an example of one patient case when co-cultured with those CML cells, we can see that there is this kind of induced activation happening in the patient's own NK cells, whereas in the other case shown here, we can't see that kind of induced activation. So clearly also here with the primary NK cells from the CML patient's bone marrow, we can see that there is a different responses, whether they are able to recognize these CML cells or not. So in the end, now I'll just show a few slides how we also now aim to understand how these NK cell responses can be improved with, for example, with the different drugs. So we are utilizing this kind of high throughput drug screen where at the moment over 500 drugs are in the plates with 5 different concentrations. And now we are adding the target cells together with the NK cells, and the aim is to understand whether these different drugs are able to enhance the NK cell mediated killing or whether they are inhibiting the NK cell mediated killing. The library includes all the FDA-approved oncology drugs, and also investigational drugs are included. So what came out from the CML case when used with the K562 cells, we noticed that there was actually only a couple of drugs which were able to enhance the NK cell mediated killing. Most of the drugs didn't have any effects, and among those were also many of those tyrosine kinase inhibitors. And then we had those drugs that inhibited the NK cell mediated cytotoxicity. But quite interestingly, now when we are looking at these enhancing drugs, so actually they all belong to the same drug family. And here is also shown that we repeated the analysis with 3 different donors, and the results were similar. But now when looking at these top enhancing drugs, they are so-called like a SMAC mimetics. And here, for example, you can see the curve. So first, when looking at this drug alone doesn't kill the target CML cells, but then when combined with the NK cells, we can see enhanced killing. So these SMAC mimetics, they are IAP inhibitors, and these IAPs, they are endogenous inhibitors of apoptosis. So they are also related to this death receptor or TNFR-mediated pathways. So seeming like that adding these would probably then sensitize these target cells for NK cell-mediated killing. We also wanted to validate these findings with the primary CD34 cells from the CML patients. We co-cultured those with the NK cells and added here the drugs, and what we could observe that there was increased killing also the primary CD34 cells. We also did the short-term colony forming assays, and shown here with the patient samples, also including a patient with a blast crisis, that this kind of addition of this SMAC mimetic together with NK cells enhanced inhibited the colony forming here. Then when we analyzed that also with a single-cell RNA sequencing, we could observe that target cell encounter induces this kind of activation signature. Imatinib doesn't inhibit that kind of activation signature, but actually then dasatinib inhibit this kind of activation which is happening in NK cells. But now when looking more closer what is happening with this SMAC mimetics, we can see that, for example, it increases the trait expression in NK cells, suggesting that it's not only impacting the target cells, but it's only impacting the NK cells, so we could have the boosted NK cell toxicity. These inhibitory drugs seem to actually inhibit, for example, the interferon gamma mediated actions here. And also then when looking on the target cell side, we could see that when this SMAC mimetic is used, we can see the increased interferon gamma and TNF-alpha and FGABA B signaling pathway upregulated. So at the moment, of course, the tyrosine kinase inhibitors are quite safe and well tolerated, but I think it's still an interesting observation. So maybe, for example, in the cases with a not optimal response, or the cases with, for example, the blast crisis, if we use this kind of cellular therapies, we could consider combining them with this kind of targeted drugs to add the function of these immune cells. So to conclude, CML patients, they have a distinct immune cell profile, both at the time of diagnosis, that changes during the treatment, and also many of those immune cells are related both to the treatment responses and the TFR. We can see that these blood cancer cell subtypes and also individual patients, they have variable mechanisms, how they are either sensitive or resistant for NK cells, and I think that also needs to be taken into account when considering, for example, the allogeneic NK cell trials. And what we can see that also there is this kind of dynamic interaction happening when the target cells and NK cells are together, and there are also some constitutive and adaptive mechanisms of resistance what is happening. Hopefully with this kind of high throughput drug screening, we would be able to discover some of the novel options for the combination of immune therapies. And with that, I would first like to acknowledge really the CML study group. At that time when I joined the group, Bengt Simonsen was chair of the group, and now Henrik Hjort Hansen has been chair for many years, and all of the colleagues within our CML community in the Nordic countries. It's really a friendly atmosphere and really nice to collaborate with you all. I would also like to acknowledge our all CML colleagues with whom I have been privileged to work during the years in different collaboration projects. Thank you for all your contributions. And of course, all of our other collaborators and funding bodies throughout the years. And finally, I would like to acknowledge our team in Helsinki. First, I would like to thank Kimmo Porkka, who introduced me to the CML field. We recruited our first students, Anna Kreutzmann, Sari Hernesniemi, and also Peter Rohon there, and it was a very nice start for this journey from the CML to the LGL, and now more recently to the NK cells. And all the team in Helsinki, a wonderful group for excellent students. So thank you all, and thank you for listening.